Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live. My name is Ben. Ben, I am a former visa officer. I'm a former visa officer and consular officer. I did the visas behind that window in the embassy and the consulates all over the world for many years. I did over 60,000 visa interviews of every single type imaginable: B visas, F visas, H-1Bs, Ls, family-based immigrant visas, O visas, P visas, R visas, Q visas, any type of visa you can imagine. I've got the experience. I did those. Today, we're going to go over a lot of your questions, answering a lot of your questions, seeing what ways I can help you, and hopefully in answering those questions, we'll be able to help a lot of other people who also have similar problems, similar situations, similar applications and interviews that they're going to be facing. So let's go through a few of these. Right now, it's August. It's the end of the fall semester student visa season. So we're going to go through, hopefully we'll see a lot of good questions about student visas, but this is not just a stream for student visas. This is also for all types of visas. So let me give you a few guidelines here at the beginning. I want you to submit your questions in the chat, but please submit your question once, and then I'll get to it. If you submit your question, if you spam the chat, we will be blocking you from the chat, and we won't answer those questions. We want to give everyone the opportunity to post their question once and once only, and then we'll get to it. I'll answer it as soon as I can. So just one time alone. Argo Visa, that's the name of our company. We are a network of 25 former visa officers. All of us worked as visa officers all over the world. We speak 14 different languages. We've worked in 35 different countries doing visas. Chances are we speak your language and we worked in your country. We know exactly what happens in a visa interview in your country, what the considerations are, what it takes to get your visa issued, what it takes to convince that visa officer that you do have the qualifications to travel to the US and return to your home country as you plan to do. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start answering some questions here. Aftab S says, I'm applying for a master's degree. If the visa officer asks to talk about your work experience, how should you explain it? Okay, so on your DS-160, it's not a job application, right? It is a visa application. It's different. In a job application, you only want to put very relevant work details, right? The work details that are relevant and pertinent to whatever job you're applying for. For the US visa application, though, you need to put all of your experience because they want to see an unbroken chain of what you were doing in your life, right? So if you have a gap for a year because you thought, oh, that experience wasn't relevant, all of a sudden they're thinking, wait, there's nothing here. What did you do during this year? You need to list everything, no matter how short term, no matter how informal, you should list everything, right? Even if it was, let's say, an unpaid internship, you still want to list that there so that they do have all of that in the DS-160. During the interview, however, talk about the relevant stuff. Talk about the stuff that's the most impressive. Talk about the stuff that makes you seem like a standout, stellar student, okay? Now, let us go to Steve K. If you visit the US on a B1, B2 visa and you stay for the 6 months, does this affect your F1 visa application in the future? I was just talking to another client about this. Even though when you enter the US, they say, yes, you have 6 months. You can stay for 6 months. It's on the stamp, 180 days. That doesn't mean that they actually are going to accept you staying for that long. I know. It doesn't make much sense. They say you can stay for 6 months and then they penalize you for staying 6 months, but that is the way that it is. 6 months is the maximum legally. However, they're still looking for like a standard of what's reasonable. If you're an older person, let's say that you're retired and you've got grandkids in the US and you want to go to the US and spend 6 months just with the grandkids, then you're going back home. You've done this plenty of times. There's no concerns there because the visa officer knows, okay, most people that are over 60, 65 years of age, they're not going to the US to work without authorization. They're really just going to visit their grandkids and then they come back. But let's say that you're 26. You're a 26-year-old who goes to the US and stays for 6 months. Well, all of a sudden, you've got a lot more explaining to do because a 26-year-old normally would be working. Everyone's situation is unique. Maybe you were on a gap year. Maybe something was special was going on in your life. But most people that are 26 are during working years, and they're going to want to know what you were doing in the US for those 6 months, if not working. They're going to suspect you were working. So yes, a 6-month stay in the US on a tourist visa, you should always be prepared for your next visa application to not go smoothly. They're going to want to analyze and scrutinize what you were doing in the US during that time. Okay, let's move on to another question. I'm applying for a 1-year dental postgrad program. Is it not ideal? Does one have to apply for a master's? How do you convince the officer of your choice? Okay, so let's interpret that this way. This question is about if you're doing something that might not be traditional, right? Might not be the most expected career path. This could be doing a second master's degree. This could be a career change, right? You were studying communications, now you want to study law, right? Anything where there's going to be a change or it's something unexpected, the way to explain it is in the terms of why it is the best decision for you, right? And I mean materially. Materially usually means why it's going to benefit you in terms of how much money you can make, right? The way to talk about this kind of stuff is this is going to be better for my career. If I do this degree instead of that degree, it's going to be better for my career. I can get better jobs in my home country. I can make a salary of this much compared to this much, right? Showing why it works better for you is the good thing. Saying something perhaps like, oh, this is my interest, or, this will help my country. These are good high-minded ideals. However, they're not as convincing, as something that's actually very just relevant to you, and kind of measurable in terms of making a higher income. Okay, so let's see. Blessing says, is working in a country other than your country of birth and applying for an F1 visa in that country a strong or weak point for your F1 visa interview? You've got a good point there. There are two things going on in this question. Let's say that you've been working in another country. Okay. Now, sometimes that can be a good thing, right? Let's say you're from a country that has a higher refusal rate, and now you're living and working in a country that has a lower refusal rate, and you have a permanent residence there. Okay, that is going to look good. I'm just going to choose two countries at random. Please take no offense at this. I'm taking these at random. Let's say that you're from Democratic Republic of Congo, and now you've been living in France, working, and you have permanent residence in France for the last 5 years. Okay, that's going to be a strong point that you've moved to France. Because why is that? France is a high income country with a strong social welfare system. And so being there, you've basically already overcome any assumption that you would need to get to the US in order to improve your quality of life significantly. You're already able to benefit from the quality of life in France. So in that sense, yes, it does benefit you a lot. Now, let's talk about something that may be more horizontal. Let's say that you're in Nigeria, but you've been working in Benin. Okay, so that's more of a horizontal move because the refusal rates in those two countries are similar. If you're doing something like that, then they're really just kind of seeing you as a third country national. Okay, there's not the benefit of having gone to a country that's got a lower refusal rate, higher incomes, higher standard of living. You've just moved horizontally to another country that's got the same similar standard of living, obviously not the exact same, similar standard of living, and perhaps similar refusal rates for visas. So when you do that, they're basically going to see you as a foreigner and they don't know as much about you, right? So in each situation, there's some nuances where I and my colleagues can look at it and we will know intuitively from our experience, okay, if you apply here, they're going to see you as a weaker applicant because they don't know anything about your country. You're from far away. They'll think, okay, what's this person doing here? I've never seen an applicant from this country. Or they may say it as, oh, this is great. I know this situation. I've seen this before. I'm ready to issue this. In terms of applying abroad as a third country national, there are two principles that I always advocate for. The first principle is applying in a large post. A large post is one that's going to have more visa applicants. They're going to have more visa officers. They're going to have more experience. So they're going to be more expert and more confident about their decision making, right? They will have seen people from your country there before. They will have seen plenty of different types of situations, and they're going to think, okay, I know what's up, right? I've been around the block. I've seen a thing or two. I know how to adjudicate this case. If you go to a small post, they are not going to be as expert just because numbers wise, if there's 2 visa officers versus 12 visa officers, well, they've got 6 times more the accumulated experience at the bigger post. So you're going to benefit from that experience. The more experience the visa officers have, the better, because when they have less experience, they're less confident about their decision making. The second principle is go to a place where they have seen people from your country before, right? So one example would be Russians right now applying in Kazakhstan. It's a good choice because in Kazakhstan, they've seen lots of Russian visa applicants, right? They know what to expect. They know a little bit about Russia. They speak Russian in that country as well. So it's not something that's so unexpected or unknown. But let's say that you are from, let's say that you're from Bolivia and you want to apply for a visa in Nepal. Oh, they've never seen a Bolivian in Nepal. They don't know anything about Bolivians in Nepal. They're going to think, I have no qualifications to assess this situation. No, I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to refuse. So you got to go somewhere where they've seen people from your country before. Let's move on to another question. See if we can address some more topics here. We're expected to be proactive during the visa interview, says Lai T. When asked if I've traveled to the US before, after answering yes or no, can I go ahead and mention the reasons for choosing the US for my studies? Okay, this is a great question because this gets to another one of the core principles, tactics of going into a visa interview, and that is being an active interviewee. Don't be passive and don't be a robot, right? You're not just, a set of answers to questions they might ask, like, okay, why are you going to this university? Because they have a good program. Where are you going to go? Massachusetts. Why did you choose this school? My brother recommended it, right? These are very simplistic answers, and you're not really letting the visa officer know who you are, right? The visa officer needs to feel that they understand the situation completely before they feel confident enough to issue the visa. And the way to do that is to give them more information. Fill out this vignette of who you are and what your plans are, right? What type of family you come from, etc. You need to tell them, enough information so that they're confident that they have a good grasp of your situation. So if they're asking, have you traveled to the US before? A bad answer is yes. A bad answer is also no, right? Okay, so what would be a better answers? A better answer would be, yes, I went to the US 3 years ago for tourism with my family. We stayed there for 3 weeks. That's a better answer. All of a sudden they're hearing, okay, well, it's 3 years ago, relatively recently. I see you went for 3 weeks for tourism. Well, that means you have disposable income that you can spend on travel, and you used the visa well. Obviously, that's a very good reason. Having gone to the US previously is one of the best ways to be able to get a visa issued in the future. Let's say if the answer is no, okay. Have you been to the US before? No. Okay, but what's a better answer? Have you been to the US before? No, I haven't, but I've traveled around the region. I've been to Colombia and Ecuador and Panama, and I went to Dominican Republic on vacation with my family last year. Okay, that's a much better answer because when they're asking have you gone to the US before, let's say without any other situations that could be out there, but let's say that they're just trying to see, have you traveled before? Have you traveled to other countries? Well, you want to go ahead and tell them about it. Let them know, yeah, I've traveled here, did it for tourism, stayed for this long, et cetera, et cetera. And they're seeing, okay, this is the profile of someone that I do want to give a visa to. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, Larty says, I got issued my J1 visa. Am I eligible for the 2-year home residency based on skills? And I am required to do the 2-year home residency based on the skills list. Does this mean I won't be able to apply for a U.S. visa when I come home for the next 2 years? It means that you will not be able to get another J visa. It means you won't be able to get another, H-1B or L visa or anything like that. You will be able to get a tourist visa for tourism, but nothing that's going to put you permanently in the U.S. for a long period of time if you do have the home residency requirement on your J visa. Oh, and you can apply for another J after that with an extension. Okay. Steve K says, if someone applied for an extension of stay on a B1, B2 in January and left the U.S. May 1st, but has not yet received a reply up until now, could something be wrong with this? So someone applied for an extension in January and left the U.S. in May. Okay, I'm assuming that they arrived sometime before January. Let's say that they arrived in, I don't know, conservatively, let's say October, September, and they left in May. Well, we've got 9 months in the U.S. there. Yes, that's going to be a problem. If you have stayed in the U.S. as a tourist while you are working age for 6 months, even if you file for an extension, and this is counterintuitive, the extension is legal. You have legal status if you get granted that extension, and you can stay in the U.S. while that non-frivolous application for extension is pending. But you will be penalized for it. They will hold it against you. They will not think that you are a good traveler when you go in for your next visa interview. That's just the way it is. Even if you get the extension approved, they're going to think that you must have been doing something illegitimate in the U.S. to stay there for that long. You need to be prepared for that next visa interview. They are not going to just accept that you stayed there for 9 months without questioning you intensively about what you were doing during that time. Okay. Okay, Jipnesh Tanuka says, is mentioning my dad's work as a hotelier a good thing to say in the visa interview because my dad owns several hotels? Yes, it is. Why? I don't know your age. I'm going to assume that you're relatively young, okay? If you're relatively young, then yes, your family's situation is going to exhibit far more stability than your own personal situation will. So yes, you do want to highlight anything from your family's economic, professional perspective that's going to support your visa application. Now, you need to do it in the right way. What's the wrong way to highlight this would be to say, my dad works in a hotel. Well, there are many people that work in a hotel. There's the person at the front desk. There's the house cleaning staff. There's the owner, right? So you want to make sure that you're stressing that your father is the owner of many hotels. That's the way that you want to stress that. Think about when you give answers. Many people will say things like, oh, my father's a businessman. Well, there's a businessman that sells eggs from the back of a bicycle. And then there's the businessman who owns, the petroleum company that, makes $500 million a year, right? There are different levels of what people can say. And I know in casual conversation, maybe if you're talking with your classmates from your own school, who live in your own neighborhood, you would say something like, oh, my dad's in business, because they would assume, okay, your dad's in business and also very successful. But if you say it to the visa officer doesn't know whether to put you at this income range or at this income range, right? So you have to make sure that you are explicit about it. So Ritik Tanwar says, my visa has been refused once. I changed my program of study. Is it good to change the program of study if my previous program was language training? Okay, so here's the thing about the changes. Everyone wants to know about the changes. The changes are something to be considered. And the reason is because visa officers are told by their managers, if someone applies for a visa and they were refused before, and nothing has changed since their previous refusal, then you should refuse them again. They're told this because it makes the job easier, it makes them be able to go faster. It also keeps the decisions consistent. They want the decisions to be consistent across the board. However, if there's more information, right? If I'm a visa officer and I see an applicant who was refused previously, but that applicant tells me something that makes me think, wait, with this information you've given me, you should get your visa issued. I don't know why they refused you before. Let's say 80% of visa officers, if you give them that piece of information, they will give you a chance and they will look and see, okay, wait, what happened in that previous refusal? Okay, was this taken into consideration? That previous officer must not have known about this, or else they would have definitely given you your visa, right? So that can be a change, or it can just be some information that they did not have previously. Anything that's going to change their mind. So if it's going to be, listen, in my last interview, I didn't talk about my family's finances because I was kind of shy. My father owns the National Petroleum Company and makes this much money per year. Oh, okay, wow, that is some shocking information. That visa officer is going 80% of there. I would say there is about 20% who are very timid and very risk averse, and they're still going to refuse because that's their nature. But 80% will say, listen, I've got this new information. Even though they were refused previously, I'm going to issue the visa. People who were refused previously get issued every single day. Every single day, hundreds of times, thousands of times per day all over the world, people who have been refused previously are getting their visas issued. It depends on that new information you present. Now, the change can be relevant. For instance, if you went to a language, if you're applying for a language program to study English, language programs are very low very low issuance rate for visas. And the reason why is because you don't need any credentials, right? You don't need any qualifications. Anybody that applies for a language program can get in, right? So it basically tells the visa officer nothing. If you change your program from a language program to, let's say, I don't know, an engineering program at the University of Michigan or any other big, recognized state school, then they're going to think, oh, wow, okay. At first, you were applying for a school with no credentials, no qualifications, nothing to make me think that you were legitimate at all. And now you're going to an elite school that has an acceptance rate of 20%, and you were able to get in. They require test scores and applications. So now you've presented something that really changes your situation. That change matters. Now, what's a change that doesn't matter? A change that doesn't matter is one that's lateral, right? Where the degree of your qualifications doesn't really change. A change that's lateral could be, well, I was going to this language school, now I'm going to a different language school. That change will not help you get your visa. That is not what you need to focus on. Just because they say, oh, you need to have a change, even if they told you that in the previous interview, no, you need to have something changed before you apply again. They don't mean frivolous changes, frivolous incremental changes that don't actually change the nature of your application. What they mean are big changes that change the entire scope of your application and your qualifications. A much better school, right? A completely different financial situation that you're presenting, right? Something that's very different, that changes their thinking. The change has to be in the officer's thinking, not just on paper. A change on paper, oh, I changed my contact person. Oh, I changed the name of my sponsor. They do not care about that. The change needs to be a change in their thinking. And that could be from information that hasn't actually changed. You just didn't present it the first time, right? But that can still change their thinking. Okay. Jean Wilgan Guédian says, how can a cousin get a cousin to immigrate to the United States? There is no way. There is no cousin immigration visa. There is a sibling immigration visa, but nothing for cousins. Tal Hakadir says, my father passed away. I'm very sorry to hear that. Now my mother looks after the business with my brother. So should I mention mother or brother? That doesn't matter. Everyone is concerned about their sponsor on their application. Who do I say? Do I say my father or my mother? It doesn't matter. You can say your father, you can say your mother. You can say your mother, you can say your brother. What matters is how you explain it. You have to explain it to them. Okay, so how are you going to pay for your education? The visa officer may ask. My mother will pay. That's a bad answer. They already know that you said your mother will pay. It's written on the application. They see it right there. They want to know more details. How does your mother have the ability to pay, right? If it's someone like an uncle or a friend, Well, then they need to know, wait, why is this person going to pay for you? A friend, because, okay, well, why would a friend pay this much money for somebody? It's just a friendship, right? And a lot of people do that because I don't know why people do that, but a lot of people put friends on there when it's actually the family that's going to pay, because they think for some reason that a friend's going to be a better as a sponsor on the application. Or an uncle. In other places in the world, it's very common for a relative to support, what in the US we would consider a more distant relative in their studies. But abroad, it's far more common. But you need to know this. You need to know beforehand, okay, do I need to explain this or not? For instance, in the US, mother or father paying for it, it doesn't matter. That you can say parents, you can say mother, you can say father. That's normal, that's expected, that's the standard in the US. Uncle, less standard. They're going to want to know why. Who is this uncle? Is he a real uncle, or is he just some person that you call uncle? Because in other parts of the world, uncle is kind of just more of a family friend character. Brother, maybe that seems very natural. An older sibling is going to pay for you. In the US, it's not so common. You need to be ready to explain this stuff. Okay, applying. Eloise Volker says, applying for an H4 visa. I had an H4 before, but I was denied this year. What's the VO looking for specifically? I do not know in your case without more information. If you had an H4 issued previously and now it was refused, there's something very special going on, because they would not just refuse that frivolously. Get in contact with us. And I'll give this contact information for everybody, but get in contact with us, because this is a situation where we'll need to help you out individually on this. ArgoVisa.com. You'll find the link in the caption. Click on that link, go to our website. You'll find out about our company, about our services, about our credentials, who we are. We can help you sign up for a consultation with a former visa officer. All of us are real former visa officers. You can check our qualifications. You can check our commissions signed by the President of the United States. We're the only people out there that are actually helping you who were real former visa officers. You can check our identity. You can check my diploma. You can check my commissions. You can check the awards that I won while I was at the State Department. We are the real deal. Anybody else that's out there that won't really give their true identity to you, do not trust them, right? Maybe their advice is good, but there's no way to verify if it is or not. There's lots of bad advice out there. Don't trust advice from sources that are not the true experts. We are the true experts on the visa interview process, because we've done over 1 million visa interviews. And I don't mean we've helped over 1 million clients. We've helped thousands of clients. But while we were visa interviews, we did over 1 million of those interviews, okay? While we were visa interviewers, visa officers, we did over 1 million interviews. Combined total as a team. Come to us. Let us help you. Our clients come back to us and talk about how we changed their lives by helping them prepare for the visa interview. They were refused 5 times before, and finally they were able to pass their visa interview. Our advice changes lives, changes fates, changes your destiny by helping you to get that visa that's going to put your life on a completely different course. Let us help you. Don't miss the opportunity. Don't skimp on getting the best advice possible to prepare for your visa interview. Come to us. Let us help you. ArgoVisa.com. Click the link in the caption. Watch the other videos that we've got on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. We got a Facebook group that's lively with a lot of people getting information on their own situations. Also on TikTok. Follow us on all social media. Go to our website. Click the link in the caption. And really take advantage of the absolute best visa preparation that there is out there. Okay. All right. So Blessing says, what do visa officers want to know when they ask you how long you've stayed in the country where you've applied, but it's not your home country? Well, they're looking for ties. What are these ties that visa officers are always looking for? Ties, put simply, are reasons why you will leave the US and go back abroad. You do not have to have ties in the country where you are applying. A lazy visa officer will refuse you if you're not proactive, if you just say, yeah, I'm here, I've only been here for a week. No, I don't have residence here. and they'll refuse you. That's a lazy visa officer who's not going to be reprimanded for doing that, but they're not trying to figure out if you have ties to your other country. They are supposed to, and even the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Visa Services just said recently in an interview that people are allowed to apply in any country in the world, right? You can find visa availability in any country and you can apply there. So you do have that right, but that doesn't mean that you'll get the same results. You will get better results in some places over other places based on who you are, where you're from, what your situation is, right? The visa officers, they rotate every few years to different embassies, different consulates. They learn new languages and they move on. But that moving on means that there's a mixing of these officers and a blending of their experiences and the standards of their adjudications. The visa adjudications worldwide are impressively coherent and standardized. Me and my colleagues, 25 of us, and then my colleagues, while I was in the State Department, I worked with hundreds of visa officers. The way that we do visas, the way that we think about visa applicants is pretty much the same all over the world. Obviously, in some places, there are different things to know, like, oh, how does the education system work? What's the college entrance exam like here? What neighborhoods are the good neighborhoods? Those specifics aside, the principles are the same all over the world. But they're looking for those ties, and that's why they're asking those questions. So if you're in a country that's not your own country, you need to be prepared to be proactive. Even if they don't ask you about ties in your home country, that's what you need to tell them about. All right, let's move on here. Please may I ask, why are dates not being released currently? It's a good question. Everyone out there has probably faced this. Unless you're in a handful of countries where visa appointments are readily available, it's hard to get a visa appointment right now for many visa classes, especially tourist visa, but also for student visas. Wait time can be very long depending on where you're applying. And it's because COVID caused a backlog of all visa classes, and the priorities right now are immigrant visas, work visas, student visas, exchange visas. The bottom priority is B1, B2 tourist visas. So they're prioritizing doing the visas that for them are the most important, and then they're putting the B visas at the back of the line. So that's why it's hard to get appointments everywhere. Wonderland says a 23-year-old can do another undergraduate a second undergraduate degree. Is that okay? All right, so let's talk about this. Doing a second undergraduate degree, this makes you a non-traditional student. Being a non-traditional student means that you're doing anything that's not the expected career path academically of going to high school, straight from high school to college, straight from college to grad school, straight from grad school to PhD, straight from PhD to working, right? That's the expected path. Anything that's a divergence from that is going to cause a little bit of a raised eyebrow, a little, if not alarm, in a consular officer. Let's say you want to do one undergraduate and do a second undergraduate. Let's say you want to do one master's and then a second master's, or you've done a master's in one field and now you want to study a different field, or you did undergraduate, you worked for 5 years, and now you want to do a master's degree. Anything that's going to be non-traditional like that is going to cause a little bit of, let's say, apprehension in the visa officer, and they're going to want to know why this makes sense for you. So it's all you have to do, and it is what you must do, is make them understand why it's a good decision. There's no rule against doing 2 undergraduate degrees, but in many cases, it doesn't sound like a good plan. What you have to do is make them understand why it is a good plan, why it's a good plan for you, why it will result in a better outcome for you, right? Maybe your first degree turned out to be useless. I don't know. Maybe maybe you want one master's in your country and now you want a master's in the US, and it's because, listen, a master's from the US is way better on the job market than a master's in my own country. Right? I have a master's from Ecuador, but if I get a master's in the US, I can come back to Ecuador and get a much better job, right? Explaining whatever it is. It may be intuitive to you, but you don't know that it's not intuitive to the visa officer. That's what I help clients with, is helping them understand what the visa officer will and won't understand intuitively about their situation, what you will have to explain to them because they won't know it. Okay, let's go on to another question here from someone new. Yasim Umar says, what should I mention in the DS form if I was previously refused when I don't know the reason why I was refused? It's a very good question. Many times, I wouldn't say all the time, many times I tell applicants just to say 214B, right? The visa officers do not expect you to know the precise reason why you were refused your visa. They know that they do not tell you the reason why you were refused your visa. And so they don't think that you're going to give them very much information that's going to be useful to them in that field. So most of the time, saying 214B is sufficient. Saying, oh, because my sponsor was my mother and not my father. These are not good things to write there. It's much better just to say 214B. If you really don't know the reason, then you should not be writing these things that are just your suppositions. Sometimes I do have my clients write something in that field. And the reason is because there's really only two fields that you can just freely write what you want to on the DS-160. The description of your job duties and the reason why you were previously refused. Whatever you write there, if it's brief enough, right? If you write this much, they're not going to read it. But if you write something brief in that field, you do know that they will read it. Many people come out of their interviews saying, oh, I don't know, they never gave me a chance to explain anything, right? They asked me one question, two questions, and then they refused me. It's very frustrating, I know. Well, first of all, when they ask you that question, that is your opportunity, right? You don't have to just say tourism or study. You can give more, you can speak more. So that is your opportunity. But if there is something that we really want them to know, something that we can describe concisely and comprehensively in that 214B explanation, in that refusal explanation box, then I will want my client to write something in there that's going to catch their attention, right? An example might be if somebody had some bad incident in the past that's preventing them from getting a visa issued in the future, but it happened when they were 17 years old. I would say, yes, we'll put that refusal code, but then the explanation is going to be, when I was 17 and a minor, this is what my parents did, and we stayed in the US. I was underage at that time, and I wasn't making the decision. I know that this was against the regulations, right? So we're putting in there that what we know they're going to find out, which is, oh, there was an infraction, but we need them to have at the front of their mind when they're considering this infraction, oh, you were a minor at the time. It wasn't actually your fault. So if we can come up with something like that, then we do want to put that in that box. Okay. Zakir Khan says, do I have to carry tax returns, payslips, bank statements, showing proof of income to the interviewer? Yes, you do. You should bring all the evidence that you can to prove your financial situation. There's no list that's comprehensive because everyone's situation is different. If your wealth includes real estate, you need proof of that real estate. If it's the ownership of a business, you need to have that documentation as well. If it's owning stocks or other types of securities, you need to have that evidence. If it's in bank accounts, you need that evidence. You need whatever evidence you can come up with to think of how to convincingly and concisely show your finances to the visa officer. Sometimes I suggest in certain situations to make a summary, make a document that's a very simple summary. The visa officers are not going to be, they're not enthusiastic about looking at your documents. But if you say something like, my family's net worth is X amount of dollars, it includes X amount in real estate and X amount in the bank. My parents do this job and that job. I've got a document here that kind of summarizes our family's finances. It's a single page, just like a spreadsheet with a line item and an amount and then a sum, right? They may say, okay, let me see that. Or they may say, no, no, okay, I got it. The best possible outcome is that you tell them and they just trust what you've told them because you explained it in such a clear, direct way. And they don't even need to look at any of your documents. Okay, Taiwo Ogayemi says that he made a mistake on his DS-160. Up until 3 days before your interview, you can change your DS-160. You can also fill out a new DS-160 and print out a new confirmation page. And when you go to your interview, you can give them the confirmation page and say, listen, I filled out a new one. I'd like to use this DS-160 instead. And they can upload it and associate that with your case instead. The problem that most people have when they face this is that the majority of people have not filled out these applications on their own. Maybe you entrusted an agent to fill out your DS-160, and that's why once you got this page and you see my birth date's not correct, well, you don't even know what they put into the application. So my first advice is do not let anyone fill out your DS-160 without you being 100% in control of it. It's not a super easy process, I know. It's time consuming. The website is bad. It kicks you out. It erases your data, but it's important. You should be with them while they fill it out. You should confirm everything before they submit it. Do not let someone fill out that form and submit it without you seeing what's in it. 100%, because you're going to be held responsible for whatever information is in there. Okay. Also, don't let them have the login for your account that you don't have access to. You need to be able to have access to your account, not just someone else who you've paid, and then you don't know your login. You never have access to that in the future. You need to be in control of that. Okay, you can have people that help you, but you need to be in control of it. It's a very serious thing. And visa officers, they'll tell you, oh, it's easy. You just do it on their own. I know it's not easy. The visa officers have never actually tried to fill out a DS-160 on their own and pay the MRV fee and schedule the appointment. They've never tried to do any of this on their own. They just say, oh yes, it's easy. You can do it on your own. It's difficult. For someone that's not tech savvy, it's difficult. And at best, it's cumbersome and time consuming. So yes, you can have someone help you, but you need to be in control of that process. Okay, we'll do a couple more questions. Okay, I applied for a B1, B2 visa to go celebrate my birthday with my boyfriend. He's in the process of citizenship, so can I apply for a K1 visa? I just want to come and visit the US and then come back. Okay, so let's go over a few things there. Let's say the K visa first. With a K visa, the purpose is to go to the US and stay permanently, not just to go to the US as a fiance and leave, or to go to the US and get married and then leave and live abroad. That's not actually the purpose of the K. So in the K visa interview, the immigrant visa officers, which are the ones that do the K visa interview, they're actually a little bit more well-trained usually than the NIV officers, just because they've been around a little bit longer, but also because the immigrant visa applications require that they be more thorough in documenting everything. So they're going to ask, what is your plan in the US, right? What is your plan to reside in the US? Well, if you don't have a plan to reside in the US, they cannot authorize the issuance of your K visa. Well, now you've got a refusal, but then you go down to the non-immigrant section, you apply for a B1, B2, and they can be a little bit more cursory with their review, and they'll see, no, you've got a fiance in the US, you want to get married, you need a immigrant visa. This all is going to stem from not being precise and proactive in explaining the situation, right? That visiting the boyfriend but wanting to live abroad is perfectly fine on a B1, B2. There's a regulation that shows exactly that getting married in the US but then intending to move abroad is a legitimate use of a B1, B2 visa. I suggest to my clients that they have this in the exact format of the regulations that the visa officers use, because they may not be familiar with that. They may just think, no, fiance, I've heard of that. You need a different visa, right? Which is not the case. So you need to be prepared to basically hold their hand through a situation that is going to be permissible by the regulations, but they may not be so familiar with how it works. Okay. Now, your boyfriend, let's say somebody, let's address a different part of this question. If you do have someone in the US who is your significant other, you've got a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner in the US, a fiance, even a spouse, right, who's in the US, that is something where when you go into a B1, B2 interview, the officers, because they make these decisions heuristically, they identify key pieces of information and then make the decision based on those pieces of information. It's not, they don't start from scratch and just start asking questions and try to build an entire mental model every single time they do a visa interview. They know there are these trends for good visa applicants and there are these trends for bad visa applicants. For them, in most places in the world, having a US partner, significant other, is an indication to them of a tie to the US. And so they're automatically putting you towards the refusal box. You've got to be really ready to show why you're not intending to stay in the US permanently. There are many reasons why that could be: professional, familial, financial. Even it could be, yes, I do plan to immigrate in the future, but that's later. Right now, it's just a visit. And then I'm going to apply for the K visa next year. Whatever it is, you do have to be proactive about identifying what those reasons are to give that visa officer a reason to reconsider their decision. Okay, let's do 2 more questions. Okay. Hello, Ben. In my F1 visa, the visa officer asked what changed in my application. If I tell my 3 positive points, will it be too much information for the visa officer? No, that will not be too much information. You need to lead with your strongest point, then your next, and then your next, right? As long as what you're telling them is super relevant and you tell them in a concise, clear way, they're going to, and I know everyone pushes back on this and they say, no, they never give you a chance. Okay, if you want to believe that, you're basically saying it's up to fate. I have no control over this, right? You don't have to approach it that way. You can approach it from a different way, right? Every time you go up to the visa interview, it's like going up to bat in a baseball game, right? They're going to throw pitches and you get to swing at those pitches. Not everybody plays baseball in the world, but that's the analogy. You get a chance every time. Take it as a chance and take and accept that you do have the ability to change the outcome in that visa interview. You can give them information. So what can we control in a visa interview? Can we control what the visa officer's decision will be? No. Can we control what questions they ask us? No. Can we control the visa officer's mood? Because sometimes some visa officers are rude and impolite and impatient, and sometimes other ones are very kind and considerate. No, we can't control that. What can we control in the visa interview? As in anything in life, we can only control what we do. We can control what we say in response to the questions. The visa officer will ask a question. At the end of that question, the visa officer will shut their mouth and wait for you to say something in response to their question. That right there, my friends, that is your opportunity to present your information, right? They've asked a question, so most likely you want to include an answer to their question, right? Okay, so where are you going to study? Well, you want to name that school, but you also have been given the opportunity to present more information. Identifying what your highlights are and then presenting those highlights in the interview, that has to be your goal. If you know I've got 3 highlights and I need to talk about my scholarship, my family's business, and my prior travel to Europe. Okay, but if you get into the interview and you don't give them that information and you only talk about the scholarship and you don't talk about anything else, then you should kind of feel like I didn't do everything that I could. No, they didn't ask me that question. No, they weren't very polite, but I could have done more to get that information out there, right? Sometimes you have to just be very direct and say, they may be asking you about, your parents, or your cousin who lives in the U.S. Well, yeah, my cousin lives in the U.S. I think he went there maybe 10 years ago or so. I haven't seen him since then. But actually, officer, and this is where you have to take the initiative. Actually, officer, I'd like to tell you about my parents' finances because I'm very fortunate. My parents have been very successful. My parents own a business, and my mother's an economist with the government, and so we have a pretty good life. We have this much XYZ amount in assets and investments and savings, et cetera, right? You have to take that opportunity, because if you don't provide them that information, then you haven't done what you do have the power to do, which is to give the information to the visa officer. Even if they don't ask the question, they're not going to negate that information and say, no, I don't want to know about any of that. Let me erase that from my head. They may say, hold on, I've got another thing to ask about. They may say that, but they're not going to erase that information from their mind. It's in there, and they're going to consider it. The visa officers are extremely earnest people who want to excel and want to be good at their jobs. They may not appear the best in terms of customer service, but I can assure you, having worked with hundreds of them, each and every visa officer wants to do their job well. And doing their job well means issuing visas to the right people and refusing visas to the right people. Okay, so if you can get them the information that makes them consider that, yes, this person should get their visa, they will do it, right? There's no visa officer trend out there of visa officers that just want to refuse people visas who they think are qualified for the visa, right? They don't do it just to be mean out of spite. They refuse visas when they think you're unqualified. And so what you can do is present those qualifications to overcome those fears, okay? The first thing that you got to do when you go into a visa interview is believe that you actually have some agency and have some control over the process. If you think that it's all up to fate and that you can't control anything, you're not going to do well in the interview. You have to realize that you do have the power to decide what you're going to say in the interview, right? That's what you have the power over. You can decide what you'll say, what information you'll provide, and that will affect what the visa officer thinks, which then will affect their decision. We have to believe that when we go into the visa interview, or else what's even the point? Everybody, this has been a great live. Great questions today. I see that we got a lot of people, a lot of students, a lot of J1s. We're experts in that at Argo Visa. Look down in the caption, click that link, go to our website, argovisa.com. We can help you pass your US visa interview. Don't waste this opportunity. Right now it's before the fall semester. Your first time applying for the visa, or your first time you're applying after you've been refused, it's very important that you get it right. Don't waste the opportunity. Invest in your future. Get the absolute best advice that is out there in the entire world for preparing for your visa interview. argovisa.com. Click the link in the caption. In the comments here, let us know what your questions are. Let us know what type of visa you're applying to, and we'll try to provide some more information there. Everybody, we'll talk to you next time. Best of luck.